Greetings and thank you for joining me again. I'm Savannah from Black Witch Coven, and this week I'm going to be sharing with you a type of magic that I think everyone should put at least somewhere in their book of shadows. You never know when you may need it, even if you believe in the lighter side of magic, because sometimes you need to know how to break up a condition or a relationship which is toxic or bad. Or maybe you just need to break somebody up because they did you wrong. Whatever the reason is, this week I'll show you how to perform some, I think it's quite easy. I'd rank this on the easier scale of magic. And I'll show you a few different types of candle magic spells that you can perform to achieve this effect. So a couple of things to remember with any type of folk magic. Firstly, you should always perform divination first. And so what do I mean by that? Well, generally, if you're having a spell performed for you, the person performing the spell will either look at tarot cards or speak to their spirit guide or try and get some sense of what's going on in this situation so they actually know how to tailor the spell for you. And I will suggest to you, even if you're brand new to magic, and sometimes performing a tarot reading yourself can be a challenge, right? Because you've got to learn how to use these cards or speak to a spirit or something like that. You should be able to at least do something such as, here I've got a little, this is a goddess oracle deck. So any oracle deck. This is just one I happen to have on my little bench right now. But to pull an oracle card with the idea that you're asking for a spirit guide or some entity to try and give you a little bit of guidance about the situation and specifically about what you're going to do magically to try and get your way. Does that make sense? So what I would do is just shuffle the cards, and as you're shuffling them, just think about what you're about to do. You know, you're about to perform a breakup spell on two individuals, and because you're spiritually asking the universe to pull these two people apart. Okay, doesn't matter which god or goddess or whatever your system you're using, that's essentially what you're asking for the universe to do. And so ask the universe for a message. Ask the gods or goddesses for a message, whoever you're calling to with this oracle card, and then pick a card. So if I'm about to, for example, I've got two couples in mind that I'm about to do a spell, a candle magic spell on video for you guys today. And so for the first couple, the first situation, the oracle message is from White Tara. Can you see that? And this card says, you are becoming increasingly sensitive. Avoid harsh relationships, environments, situations, and chemicals. So to me, that would be an indication that spirit doesn't want you to perform this level of magic right now. That's my interpretation. That's what I would say. So maybe to this client, and lucky I have a plan B for this client, which I'll share with you, there's a softening to this, because what I mean by a softening is that we don't have to go hardcore just with the destruction and the breakup. We're going to do something a little bit softer, that we're asking for the universe to bring the person you want from the breakup situation towards you, but maybe you're also asking for protection as well during this time. So I'm going to keep that card next to that set of candles I'll show you. So that was, I kind of felt that already. You should trust your intuition, but I kind of felt like that about this couple and about the situation, about my client who's asking for this work to be complete, because she's on the fence anyways about doing baneful style of magic. So this was a really nice message and card for her, considering the background of her situation. For the next situation that I'll be sharing with you, this situation, intuitively, I feel like we need to go a little bit hardcore, or a little bit more forceful, if you want. And I know the client is very open to that level of magic too. They're not worried about karmic situations. So what I mean by that is that there's no reason for the magic not to flow towards them achieving the outcome, because they 100% want this to happen, so be it. And I think that I'm like that too. I feel like if something is so important to me that I want to cast a magic spell, I'm not going to be worried about the consequences. Let's just go. I'm ready to deal with it. That's how passionate you have to be. So with this situation for this client, interesting. This would be a green light to go ahead. For this card, Matt, the situation will be handled in a fair and just manner. So Spirit's saying, come on, bring it on. My interpretation, let's go, let's make this happen, let's destroy this relationship, let's destroy this couple, because we're ready for it. We're going to handle it in a very just manner. So you will feel like you've had your revenge and you will be satisfied. My interpretation. So that's using the oracle cards. Naturally, if you're a little bit more experienced, you might just wish to do the tarot or read the tarot cards. And it's the same type of idea that you're asking the spiritual world for either a tarot reading, divination, where you're looking into the current situation or the future. Or what I like to do as a spellcaster is I call to my spirit guides and I ask, tell me about this situation. What do I need to know? What are some of the blockages? What are some of the things I could potentially come up against? Is there anything here that I should be wary of? That type of thing. And so I will look at those, and generally, no matter what the spirit says, I'm going to do what I'm setting my intention out to do, but I will modify the spell with the spiritual consideration in mind. But sorry, it's not a tangent that I've just taken you on right now. Asking for the spiritual message is very important to any type of magic, especially this type of magic where it could be considered folk magic. Now, there's a couple of different types of couple candles. Firstly, the ones you'll see and love and probably love working with because it's quite obvious what's going on here. Here we have a female and a male, and they're standing back to back, right? Can you see they're standing back to back? They're on this little love heart base. That's the way the manufacturer is creating these. And the concept is that this couple is now black, so you're asking for them to be destroyed, broken, have the darkness come over them, that type of visualization. But when you're staring at this couple, you don't have to imagine or use your imagination too much. It's very easy to visualize what you're doing here while you set the flame alive. But there's other style of candles that you could use as well. You could use 2 back-to-back figure candles, and I recommend doing that, especially if you have a same-sex situation. Obviously, 2 females, a female relationship that you want to break up, 2 female candles standing back-to-back, so it doesn't have to be joined at the base. I guess that's what I'm saying. Of course, if it's 2 guys that you're wanting to break up, you put the 2 guys facing back outwards, and you will separate them. There's a couple of different techniques for how you do this, but the most important aspect is you're turning them away from each other. So now they're facing out towards the world. Now there's another one here. There's 2 lovers embracing in black. So what you're really doing is destroying the love life or sex life. That's what I like to say about this one, my interpretation. And there's a black, this couple is side by side. and it's basically a marriage bust-up candle. That's what my visualization or my interpretation for this candle is. Now, there are a lot of different types of herbs or that you can potentially use for breakup work, or different curios that you could use to use hoodoo or root work sort of language. But probably the best curio is the black dog hair and the black cat hair. And the idea is that you want this couple to fight like cats and dogs. So if you can get your hands on some black dog hair or black cat hair, that is probably one of the top things to get if you're working the hoodoo or conjure type of system. The other, probably even more importantly than that, is that you have personal concerns of the target. This means you have nails, hair. Some people use anything that has touched their body, DNA. So maybe it's a piece of their clothing that you kept or something like that. That is considered really good as well. Now, coming down from that tier, different other things that I like to use is lemon verbena. This is really good. I use this for breakup type of work, pulling apart situations, destroying situations that I don't want. And cute, considering of black dog hair, black cat hair, using dog grass and catnip, dog and cat. So just something cute, something you think about. Remember, it's all visualization. But valerian is also very good to use in breakup or baneful crossing type of magic. So if you're using some herbs, there's some herbs to think about. Other than that, why not make it easy for yourself and just go get a great breakup or a separation oil? That is probably the best thing you can do. And if you have a cursing or crossing type of oil or a doom oil, that is also really good. You can use that too. And some of my students have said, do you need all of them? Do you need the herbs and the oils? In root work or conjure, they like to visually see a lot of the herb or the root. But in witchcraft, if we're making, or demonolatory, if we're making a really strong oil, the oil has been constructed from the plants and the roots. So is it necessary to have all the herbs as well? Well, you make that decision, but I'm going to say probably not. So let's look at the breakup jar candles. Really quite straightforward. You can grab these online at Botanicas, and the price will vary, obviously, because if you're getting it from an online store, shipping of these is quite heavy. They're like £2 each. So yeah, the shipping can be a challenge, but you can pick them up for probably $5 to $10 if you're buying them from a Botanica or a candle store. You can get the brown ones where there's a couple and then a line down the center. Quite easy to see what's going on. The snake, not always with the snake candle do you see the words breakup written on it, but this one does. And so the idea of using a jar is really quite simple. I'll give you a little witchy tip. You might just want to spend a minute holding the jar, and in between, what you're really doing is getting into state and single-mindedly thinking about what you're asking this jar to do. And is that important? Well, you don't have to. I mean, I wouldn't do that for every single candle I light for my clients, because I have to rely on what they're writing in their petition. But when I'm doing this myself, what I'm really doing is I'm really charging the candle with its purpose. And when I feel like I have held it enough and I feel like it's a little bit connected, and when you get used to energy, you will understand what I mean by that, because it's almost like the jar or the energy pushes back, almost saying, I'm full, I've had enough. And so then you can pull back there, and now you're ready to work with the jar. Now there's a couple of different ways that you can work a jar. Firstly, to write a petition. So you can write the petitions down the jar. It's quite simple to see where to fill in the blanks here. You have a male on one side, a female down the other side, and your petition can be written down the white bar of the center. Then you can dress the candle either with some personal concerns or a few drops of the oil, and that can be considered dressed. Or you could write a petition. Now, if you're writing a petition paper for this, you just write both names 9 times on the paper. You fold the paper, they would say you fold it away from yourself, and then you place that paper under the candle. And that's it. You light the candle and you let it burn. That's the idea of that. But personally, I think in breakup situations or situations where you're trying to manipulate an individual to do something that they probably don't want to do, you should burn consecutive candles. So why is burning consecutive candles important? Well, to me, and I think this is true for most people that do candle magic, the intention or the petition is only sending its energy out there while the flame is alive. So the idea for this difficult situation is take the flame from the candle that is dying and transfer it over to another candle that you have prepared. And in hoodoo, you only work with odd numbers. So obviously 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. You don't burn just 2 candles on a situation. So you're going to, I would say, at least do a minimum of 3 candles on the situation. And as these candles can take between, say, 4 to 7 days to finish, this is probably a nice little series of candles that you would do over, say, 21 days to really push that energy out there, that low frequency energy that you want this relationship to dissolve, and so be it. And so that is one way you can keep pressure on a couple so they can go through the motion of separation. Now, I also think this is important because when it comes to breakup magic, you can break up the individual or get them to fight or argue, but that doesn't mean that they will instantly just leave the situation, pack up from the house, go and see a divorce lawyer, take off down the street and run into your arms. In fact, that's probably the most unlikely scenario. It would be great, and maybe that's what we see on TV, but that's not actually the reality of what happens in magic, especially breakup magic. So I suppose I should up the ranking of breakup magic to not easy, challenging, but I'll keep it easy because to perform candle magic for breakup, the process you need to do isn't a challenge. Okay, that's my logic. So the idea of burning sequential candles is that, say, for example, in the next 7 days, when the first candle is burning, the couple begins to argue and fight. And by the end of the week, the guy comes back to the girl and says, listen, we have 3 kids. We don't have the money to break up. Let's just try and go and see a counselor and move through this. She's like, okay, fine. You know, they don't really like each other anyways, but they're doing it for other reasons. They're hanging in there. So then you put the flame onto another candle and you're keeping that intention out there. You're pushing that desire out there that you really want this couple to separate. It's for their best interest. It's for the best interest of their children because all they do is fight and argue. And so you're pushing this onto the candle, and they fight and argue again. And at the end of that week, once again, they circle back and say, listen, we've got to see that counselor. We've got to hang in there. And meantime, you're sitting at home thinking, my magic's not working. I'm a shitty spellcaster. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's just not true because the nature of breakup magic is exactly how I described. Now, remember, all those little herbs and things you add to the candles along the way, helps infuse the candle with your desire. So, for example, if you really didn't like the people and you want to fight and argue, maybe you add that black cat hair and black dog hair, or maybe you add confusion oil, or maybe you add tobacco oil. You can add and create a different vibe for each week if you want, for each candle if you like. But you have to, I say, you have to keep your petition the same. Don't be changing that petition with the candle. Keep this line of energy towards your goal pure as you can. The other thing that I'll mention with these candles is, and a common question I will get asked is, do you just let them all burn all day, all night? And the answer with these candles, I'll say, is yes, you should. You come back to the candle each day and tend to it, maybe putting a few extra drops of oil on it. But you just keep letting these burn. And if you're worried about fire safety, then obviously use your common sense, sit them in a saucepan or a pot or pan or something like that where they're not going to be disturbed. But yeah, while the flame is alive, it's pushing your desire out there into the universe. So does that make sense? All right. So remember at the beginning of this video, I said I was going to show you a way of burning these candles. And especially it's good if you're worrying about, negative feedback or repercussions and stuff like that. And so I learned this trick from a guy called Jonathan who used to own F&F Botanica. R.I.P. Jonathan, he's passed away a few years ago now. But I thought this was a really clever way of actually doing candle magic. And it is using 3 candles. But this time what you're doing is you're lighting all 3 of them together. Now, in this scenario, what you'll do is dress this candle with maybe the breakup oil or dark arts oil or double cross oil, whichever you like. And you'll write the names of the targets either down the jar or on a petition paper that you're going to sit under the candle. That's for candle 1. But you're also going to prepare another candle, which is a come to me candle, because my client wants her ex back. She wants this person, her ex, to break up with this new person and come back to her as a result. That's a little different from just breaking them up, right? And for many of you out there, that might be something to consider, because generally you want this person to break up with whoever they're seeing now and come back to you. So you'll prepare a come to me candle or a red love style candle. And you could either write your name directly down the jar and the petition down the jar, or on a piece of paper, you'll write your lover's name, the person you want to draw back to you. You'll write their name. And then what you'll do is write your name over the top of their name. So the idea is that now you're controlling them, or you're getting on top of the situation. They're consumed with you. As I said, there's lots of different ways to do that. And if you don't want to write a petition paper, you don't have to. You can write it straight down the jar of the candle. And what's a little bit different here is that you'll also be considering a protection candle. Now, this client is a Christian, and so she is concerned about any negative repercussions, karmic, all that type of stuff, all that feedback back to her. And she does want to be protected from the situation or doing the magic, and nothing negative to come back to her. Now, you can dress a protection candle, of course, with protection oil or Van oil or fiery wall of protection, or mandrake is one of my favorites. But this candle will be lit at exactly the same time in the middle. So that's how you burn all 3 of them together. And this is considered a spell within itself. It's very interesting to watch as well, because when you're watching them burn, one may burn faster than another, one may emit more smoke, there might be pops and cracks going on. But the idea is that all together we're pushing this intention out into the world. So something to think about Now I'll show you some tips for working with this type of breakup candle. Lots of different ways you can handle this, but generally what I'll do is I will engrave in the side of the candle the people's names, dates of birth. I might put different little symbols or pentagrams or whatever I want to put on, whatever I feel like at the time. Now, I haven't released a video where I'm going to show you how to work with different sigils and symbols and seals, paper seals, but I will generally work with some level of paper seal when it comes to this type of magic as well, and I might sit this candle on top of the seal, but I'll talk about that in detail later on. But you could draw any symbols or seals directly onto the candle itself. Some candles you'll notice a hole in the base, and that's where you can put a petition or personal concerns into that base as well. So when you've done that, sometimes depending on how I feel, especially if I'm not separating the candle, I will sit it on a bed of nails. More specifically, I use coffin nails. I like to prepare and gather a lot of coffin nails, especially once a year, to use in this type of magic, but I think it's so symbolic. Or I'll sit them on a bed of graveyard dirt. I'll dress it with any appropriate oil or herb, generally oils, because sometimes if you dress these candles with too many herbs, it does affect the way it burns. So I do change my mind sometimes, especially if I've made a really great oil that's already infused with all that herb. So when I light the candle, I'll really be considering what I want to achieve with this couple, why I want them to break up, how it's going to benefit them both, how they're going to be happier living on the other side, all of that type of thing. You're really pushing that energy into the candle, into the flame. For me, I'll be watching how the flame reacts. Does one set on fire faster? Is there a lot of smoke emitting from the candle? How fast is that wax burning? Taking note of all of these things because it all means something. Under this video, I'll put a link to interpreting figure candles and jar candles so you can read about some of these things. I think it's totally fascinating. It's not necessary, you don't have to, but I like those type of considerations. Now, I just finished this candle for one of my clients, and I'll show you a few pictures of what I did for her. I sat the candle on a bed of nails, and I worked the candle on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesdays under the energy of Mars because I want the couple to fight and argue, and Saturdays I'm under the energy of Saturn because I just want to destroy them. I want the destruction of the relationship. So I will light the candle for about 5 to 10 minutes on those days only. And this goes back to what I was saying before, my logic about how couples actually break up. It's a process. So they'll fight, they'll argue, and then even though they don't like each other, or there could be other reasons they're staying together, they might reconcile and come back and make it work. So what you're doing is you're making the living condition unbearable, so they have to take that next step. So I found that when I burn this couple candle, a little bit on Tuesday, a little bit on Saturday, coming back to the next week, it took me around 4 weeks to actually finish the entire candle. And when it finished, as you can see, the female side of the candle was much higher than the male side of the candle. Now, when you see tall, waxy pillars, if you want, at the end of something like this means that there's something that's blocking the candle magic, the spell, if you will. Sometimes it means that the individual is protected, or maybe they've done some counter magic. Maybe they expected you to do something like this and they're blocking you. Sometimes it means your energy was too weak as a spellcaster, and or that the candle magic style of spell isn't strong enough to overcome what's going on in the situation. This is kind of true if there is true love between these two. Maybe they're spiritually protected or bound or something like this, and a single candle magic isn't going to pull them apart. Something to consider. Now, when this candle started, there were very high flames. It was very powerful. It was a very even burn. And so there was some level of success to this. And so when I asked my client for feedback, she informs me that this couple is in fact having a lot of issues this month. They are fighting a lot this month. But like I said, I would personally do something in additional to candle magic to make sure we really chop those cords and finish it for good. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to be showing you different styles of magical spells, which many people would say this is black magic. If you want to call it black magic, it is. Remember, my definition for black magic is the manipulation of another person against their free will. I say that so easily, right? But don't we all do that all the time? Don't you want people to do things in your life? You want others to do things that they don't want to do? Consider your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kids, your family, your teacher, your boss. It goes on. So it's such a futile debate. I can't even be bothered. Remember, my tip is to do it multiple times. Consider what spirit has to say beforehand with divination, and maybe read the jars or read the wax at the end of performing candle magic so you know what to do next. Now, of course, if you get something that's black or dark, maybe you want to do a spiritual cleansing yourself. Clean your space, maybe do a hyssop bath or something like that where you're cleansing yourself before you begin the next level of work. Something to think about and consider, but especially if you're new to magic, that might be important as well. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed my little lesson on breakup candle magic, and I'll see you next week, I hope. All right, may your spell casting be auspicious. Bye for now.